Are we live, Nicholas? Hey, look, it went up in a timely manner. We are live, Nicholas.
Weird.
Very weird. Very weird. What a week. What I got to say is this, Nicholas. I'm going to keep it short. I'm going to keep it brief, just like my dalliances in the boudoir. Not every hero wears capes, Nicholas.
It's true.
Some of us wear hats. Some of us wear cowboy boots.
Mm-hmm.
Some of us wear cowboy boots while in the throes of lovemaking. Whatever.
I knew you had a fucking camera in my house.
Well, I do. It's been a week, but Nicholas and I, folks, are here to distract you, to provide you with an hour or so of good, clean comic book fun, void of swears, shenanigans, and tomfoolery. Just
Lies.
straight comic book talk that we hope you find engaging. With that said, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and listeners of all ages, TLDR Studios proudly presents to you the greatest, and I mean the greatest, podcasting team in the world. He's the comic book writer, Dick Friar. I am your friendly neighborhood backcracker, Dr. Joe. Together we are the TLDR Comic Book Club, baby. You like that, Nicholas?
I know that time it was on purpose. Last time I thought it was too. That one was for sure on purpose.
Yes,
Rat bastard.
Yes, it was.
But you know
Dick
what? I agree that we're trying, hopefully that we're providing everybody with like an hour plus of, enjoyment each week. We've always been trying to do that, but I know now we all need that a little bit more. But we're also hoping too that we're helping you beyond the hour because we're recommending a bunch of books. Obviously, the weekly releases. We're doing another main line this week, and with these two titles that Joe and I are talking about, maybe that takes up another couple hours for you where you can escape into these two very different titles that I'm very excited to dig into Joe's because I've been waiting for him to talk about it for a long time. And you're going to love the one that I'm talking about, Joe, because you're going to read this thing so friggin' fast. But more on that later. Quick reminder before we start getting into our reviews, we do have an early look for you guys this week, but I want to remind you, if you are new to the show, well, I don't know why you need a reminder if you're new to the show, but if you're new to the show, make sure you subscribe to one of our audio channels. So if you're catching us on YouTube, over on X or whatever the fuck, or on Instagram.
I said good, clean fun, Nicholas.
Well, you lied. You lied you lied like 5 times. I know that's in vogue now, but you lied like 5 times in that intro. But anyways, make sure you subscribe to one of our audio channels because the truth about that is you're only going to be able to find our Friar Side chats there, and that's our conversations with creators across the industry, varying in experience, varying in roles. Generally, we talk to writers because, artists are usually busy doing all the hard work, but we try and mix it up. So make sure you subscribe there. We haven't had a new one in a little bit, but of course we were busy with spooky season, but we may have some coming down the line. You never know. We always talking to different creators about possibly hopping back on or making their first appearance on the show. But make sure when you subscribe as well, make sure you leave a 5-star rating and review. Only the highest rating you can leave, please. Otherwise, you're going to learn the real meaning of backcracker, and that is a fact. All right, moving on, Joe, let's get to our shit. We got nothing in terms of catching up. We don't want to waste any time on that because this week we have a major early look that we want to dig into, and I will let you take the lead on this one.
Oh, man, I am so pumped about this. I was stoked to see this come into the inbox and even more stoked to hear that we could talk about it. Spoiler free, of course, and that is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles issue 4, which drops in your local comic book shop on November 27th, 2024. This is the issue I've been waiting for, Nicholas. The Donnie issue, the Donatello issue, man. Like, we got a taste of this when before the series kicked off. We got a little TMNT Alpha, and it was just it was a quick sort of story on where Donatello is, and it blew our minds. And so when the series started, I believe the first issue we got was Raph, then it was Mikey, then the last one was Leo, and then the one coming up is Donnie. And having already had a taste of the Donatello issue, I was just like, dying for it. And I got to tell you, Nicholas, as good as that alpha was, it pales in comparison to what we got and what you will get and see in this issue if you've been reading it. Jason Aaron, I think, was the right person at the right time to sort of take over TMNT. The last Ronin, it did really, really well. I love the first iteration of the last Ronin, and there's been some spin-offs since that have been a little up and down. But this, like when this was announced, I knew it was going to be big. And I've got to tell you, Nicholas, like not only like how do I want to say this? The way he set up each individual issue being turtle specific was so well done because it allows you to get refamiliar with the characters, the new iteration of the characters, where they are without having to have a ton of exposition. It's great character work. And what it does is that you get these first 4 issues, and now we get to see where they're going, right? And now the journey begins. And I think maybe I am talking out of school, Nicholas. I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong. But for me, this might be one of the best turtle stories told in my lifetime, which would be of all time, right? It's just, I love everything about it. I
Yeah.
really do.
I think it's still very early, but at the same time, you could not have asked for a better start to Jason Aaron's run. And obviously, he's been working with different artists throughout the start of this run and different artists on each issue. On this one, we got Chris Burnham, and man, he went friggin' nuts with Donnie in this issue. And this one, more so than any of the others, had that throwback vibe to the texture, the coloring, and everything. So I really enjoyed that. But Joe, I feel very similar to you. Like the biggest thing for me, the reason why I feel like at least this is on pace to be an all-time TMNT run is that Jason Aaron, with the artists that he's been working with throughout the start here, have allowed me to get invested in each one of the turtles. I've always Raph's always very popular, Mikey's always very popular. Then you have some people who like Leo, and I always feel like Leo and Donnie are the clear, 3 and 4. I know you've always kind of liked Donnie, but I've never been a big Donnie guy. I think right now of the issues, Donnie had the best single issue, then Raph, then Mikey, then Leo. And Leo's was still really good. And I am now invested in each one of them. Jason Aaron showed command for all of those characters. So not only am I invested from these first 4 issues, but now there's like this confidence that he's like these stories are going to feel very holistic. It's not like I'm sure we'll have some Mikey focus or a Donnie focus, get certain issues or on certain arcs, but I feel like no one's going to be throwaway. Everyone's going to be rounded out still within their, within each given issue, whether or not they have a big role or not. So I'm with you that like this is an amazing start to Jason Aaron's run.
Yeah, and there's still a lot of intrigue. There's still a lot of unknown.
Yeah,
but you're pulled in, right? And so, at some point we are going to get some of that backstory, right? We are going to get some of what led the turtles down the roads that they were currently on. We have some glimpses of it, but I also look forward to where they're going to go together, right? And you get a sense that there's animosity between them. I want to find out about. So there's just so much that we have yet to learn, that we still don't know, and that that journey that Jason Aaron's going to take us on is going to be wild. And like I said, this is the last Ronin was raw and gritty. That's what we're getting with this too. But I think on a grander scale, because now we're getting all the turtles versus just the one.
Yep.
And you can't ask for much more.
The last thing before we get going on the releases for this week, I do want to note, if you like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but you haven't read over the last few arcs, or the last run that they had, because obviously that went on for, I think it was 150 issues. Don't worry. Like, yeah, there may be some things that you just don't know what's going on, but the way Jason Aaron has written it, it's like it's part of that intrigue that Joe's talking about, where like you don't know what's going on. You kind of can put some pieces together, but there's still a lot to unpack. So don't worry. If you haven't been on board, you can get on board. Just got to get these first 4 issues, and you will read them all in one sitting if you are a longtime Turtle fan. It is some awesome stuff. But that is it for our early look. Let's get to what's new this week, Joe, and please kick us off with Marvel.
So from Marvel, we have The Amazing Spider-Man issue 61, Ultimate X-Men issue 9, Uncanny X-Men issue 5, Venom issue 39, Deadpool issue 8, The Spectacular Spider-Man issue 9, Nyx, not Stevie, just Nyx, issue 5, Captain America issue 15, Werewolf by Night issue 4, Venom War Wolverine issue 3, Venom War Deadpool issue 3, Conquest 2099 issue 3, Ewoks issue 2, and a number one, Nicholas. Now, did I give you dibs on this? Did I say you read this? This would be a good book to talk about on the show, because I didn't read it yet because I thought I gave you dibs during the solicit.
You might have if you like. I didn't. I'm taking them now. I'm taking it now because I wasn't like you had. I don't know. You had marked it off for me as if it was just my book. So I was like, okay, like if Joe's gonna give me it, then I'll take it.
My because I think we talked about this during the solicit, in that we do a lot of indie books on this program, because that's where our heart, our hearts will always lie with Marvel and DC, but we really do love to explore the indie books because there's just so much more, I think, to explore there.
Yes.
But I thought, like, yeah, we should do a little bit more Marvel and DC from time to time on the show.
They've earned it. I mean, that's the big thing.
Of course they have, right? And I know you love Psylocke. So why don't you tell people about this first issue?
Well, so real quick on that larger note, like Marvel always puts out some good stuff. There's always things. The same with DC. There's always some good stuff. But like right now, there's a lot of good stuff between both places. Like it's been a real rush. Marvel, I feel like, has had an extended run. DC's like I liked their Rebirth stuff. There was some New 52 stuff that I've talked about on here, but I feel like recently there's been another real push for them. So yeah, it's like that's why I say they've earned it recently.
Yeah, and the thing with DC, right, is that DC had a real lull this year, like a real lull. And in the past years, they've had some real swings and misses. But I feel like, what they're doing now with All In, so the absolute stuff. I think giving a lot of these properties to Joshua Williamson, he's done a really great job over the past year, 2 years with Batman, with Robin, Damian Wayne, in particular. So I think they're moving in a really great direction. I've been reading more Marvel stuff is like just fastballs right down the middle. You know what I mean? Like, what you're going to get. And every now and then we come across a series that like, ooh, shit. Like, cause if I go upstairs onto my bookshelf and take a look, I've got a pretty good split, 50-50 split between all-time DC books I have up there, right, and all-time Marvel books I have up there. And I think we might be on the precipice of starting to get some of those again, like some all-time Batman stories, some all-time X-Men stories, things of that nature. So talking about more Marvel and DC books on main lines, I think from time to time, is good. I think what helps separates us from the rest is our love for indie books. But every now and then you got to give the people, a little bit of what they want.
Yep, 100%. And just for everybody at home to keep in score, Joe's talking about Emmanuel Classe's fastball when he says that.
Oh, fuck that guy, asshole. I mean, the Guardians weren't going to beat the Dodgers, but the fucking Yankees, get out of here.
You're right. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said Emmanuel Classe. I should have said Chris Sale. Moving on.
I would love to see him win the Cy Young. That would just scratch me right where I itch.
He's 100% going to win. He's going to win that. I get along with Chris Sale at least. Anyways, moving on. All right. So yeah, Psylocke. Well, let's talk about that for a quick second. So again, I have dibs on this. As I was reading it, I wasn't intending on taking dibs just because I assumed you were going to want to check it out, but it totally makes sense because this is a character who I love. Seeing her get her solo title is huge. And for those who are reading X-Men right now by McKay and Stegman, wondering like, how is Psylocke gonna separate from the team
Wolverine,
and have her own title? Well, yeah, like a Wolverine thing, they find a way like to explain that, to make it work. Like that's a thing that is addressed in this issue, so we're gonna have some time there. I don't know how much that's gonna impact things over with X-Men, the main title right now, but they're gonna they made it work for right now with the Psylocke story. But this gives us a nice close-up on Kwannon and like what she's going through and what she's gone through previously and how that's impacting her now very much a character-driven story, which I think, with Marvel, especially with these X-Men characters who people really like that we haven't seen as fleshed out over the years, or maybe there's still more to do. That is the way to go here. The action in this is top notch. Like Vincenzo Caruto and is the artist on this, does an outstanding job. Like her psychic abilities and her martial arts abilities are on full display, and I love it. And obviously, like Psylocke got a very cool look with her powers in particular. But right away, Alyssa Wong, Vincenzo Caruto, like very promising pairing to start with Psylocke.
Nice.
All right. Moving on to DC, as we mentioned them earlier, we got Action Comics 1075, Green Lantern issue 17, Batman and Robin issue 15, Gotham by
real quick, right? Philip Kennedy Johnson, right?
Yeah.
He's taking over Batman and Robin. I said it last issue, and even more so pressing this issue. This might be the best Batman Robin issue of them all.
Wow!
Right? Like this was excellent. Philip Kennedy Johnson's stamp on these two characters on this particular story. Absolutely blew my socks off this issue. Excellent stuff.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Didn't see that coming. Yeah, that's back-to-back issues. So that's a great start for him.
He's taken, like, Williamson's approach was always been great, and it's been a little more I didn't mean to pontificate on this title, but I just felt the need to real quick. It's like it's been a little bit more, what's the word I want to say? Like, not jovial, right? But just your classic, like, smug Damian and then Bruce. And there's been a little bit more, I want to say, fun with it, right? Okay. Not to say that it's been all cutesy. Like Philip Kennedy Johnson, it is darker, it is grittier. There's something gritty about it that I absolutely love.
Nice.
That is like, and that's no knock on Williams and stuff, because I loved it, and I thought he had a great grasp. He made me actually. He gave a lot of depth to Damian Wayne.
It's a fresh take now. That's all.
Yeah. And what Philip Kennedy Johnson's doing right now is just it's good.
That's good. I mean, this is what you want, like, especially as a reader. I mean, I think DC wants that too. It's like, okay, we had like this one thing. Don't bring another guy who's going to do the same thing that Joshua Williamson did, because he's, no matter what, it's just not going to be received as good. Mm-hmm. So that totally makes sense. So mission accomplished there. That's good to hear. Moving on, we got Gotham by Gaslight, the Kryptonian Age issue 6, Batman Dark Age issue 6, DC versus Vampires World War V issue 4, Multiverse Collision Detected issue 5, Wayne Family Adventures issue 138, Batman Uncovered, and so that's a collection of Batman covers. We've seen that with Wonder Woman, we've seen that with Nightwing, and then we got Black Lightning issue 1, and then the second issue of Absolute Batman, of course, Scott Snyder and Rafa Sandoval. And Joe, there is a scene with Bruce that Scott and Rafa Sandoval bring to life that I'm still in disbelief about. Obviously, we can't mention specifics because of spoilers and what have you, but this was a really cool idea, and it was very well executed, and it totally fits in this world, something I never thought I'd see. And while that scene is also like the thing that's sticking with me right now, like there's also another image with Batman that's just like, this should be a fucking poster. This is a really one individual panel. That's a big panel, not a full page, but it's like this could have been a full page thing, and it's fucking badass. So for me, like 2 for 2 on Absolute Batman so far.
Yeah, I mean, I love it. I've got a couple of small picadillos, but nothing major. Ooh. But I love the storyline. I love the take. I'm trying to remember. I'm scrolling through now. Okay. The thing, the scene you're talking about being brought to life. You are absolutely correct on that. Right? There are some visually stunning panels and splash pages, if you will, in this particular series. So I love Scott Snyder. This is not a wild take or anything, but just like his writing style, I just think fits Batman so well. And with the Absolute stuff, right? I love that, DC is sort of taking the reins off in a sense and allowing the creators that are writing these absolute titles to have some leeway with the characters in them and not keeping them pigeonholed within certain parameters. Now, we probably still won't see Batman do that because heroes don't do that. But what we get here is just some really it's just fresh takes on Batman. I feel like there's a tendency to get oversaturated on Batman because it seems like there's a Batman title every week.
Wayne Family Adventures.
Right. But Zdarsky's take on Batman to finish up this final arc has been fantastic. What Joshua Williamson and Philip Kennedy Johnson is now doing with Batman and Robin is absolutely fantastic. Right. I love Batman the detective, but what we get in Absolute Batman is something else, something we haven't seen. Right. And that's hard to do with a character that's been around as long as Batman has. So love it. Make sure you guys are picking up and gals are reading it because I think if you're feeling Batman fatigue, this is something that might rekindle that spark for you.
That is a great call because you're getting some awesome action in it, and like he's pushing he's pushing the line with the character from an action standpoint, and of course with Rafa as well. All right, moving on to Image. There was a big first issue that you're going to talk about this week. I'm going to let you catch your breath for a quick second, and I'll take us through Image and Skybound here real quick. Transformers issue 14. All caught up on that, by the way. Took me a little bit.
Oh, thank God, Nicholas.
So good.
Jesus.
Radiant Black Ultimate Edition issue 30. Witchblade issue 5, Black Cloak issue 10, Violator Origin issue 3, Salmon Twitch Case Files issue 8, Precious Metal issue 6, The Domain issue 5, Lady Mechanica, The Devil in the Lake issue 3, Rifters issue 6, and then Joe, I don't know if you've called dibs on this book, but like I kind of want you to take it because,
dibs.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
So I was actually thinking, like, do I dedicate a month where I just do Energon main lines? Right, it's entirely possible. I can't do Transformers because we're both reading it, but there's Void Rivals, there's Scarlet, there's Duke, there's Cobra Commander, there's Destro, and now there's G.I. Joe. This is written by Joshua Williamson with art by Tom Riley. So, what's great about this book and what's great about the Energon universe is it's like Radiant Black. You can read any of these on their own and enjoy them, right? Destro was 5 issues, boom. Duke, 5 issues, boom. Scarlet, 5 issues, boom. Cobra Commander, 5 issues, boom. It's like you can read those all, enjoy them for what they are, right? Void Rivals is ongoing. That's sort of like the genesis of all of this. This is sort of, you're getting the prequel at the same time as you're getting all this stuff taking place in present day. Transformers is ongoing. G.I. Joe is going to be ongoing, right? The beauty about Duke, Scarlet, Cobra Commander, Destro is that they all tie in together, and you can read them all separately, enjoy them, and when you pick up G.I. Joe 1, you're going to be like, all right, especially with Duke, Destro, and Cobra Commander. But if you haven't read any of those and you just read G.I. Joe, you can still read it on its own and be like, boom, all you need to know is that you're in a universe where G.I. Joe and Transformers coexist. Right. And those other titles just sort of give you, some good background information. Like G.I. Joe fans don't need to read Cobra Commander. It's like he's a new character, right? If you're a fan of G.I. Joe, you know who Cobra Commander is, right? You know who Destro, you know who these characters are, right? But reading their sort of solo titles, their little mini series there, just add some layers of depth to this wonderful soup that is the Energon universe. And so G.I. Joe was great because it essentially revolves around Duke, putting together his team and combating, their, dealing with these unknown robots that transform into things, right? So, right, it's sort of setting up this clash between G.I. Joe and Transformers, while you have, Cobra Commander and Destro do it. So it's like it's a war on 3 fronts where two of the sides don't know they're on the same side yet. right? Which is
Nice.
awesome.
Yeah.
So this was, I mean, Williamson is absolutely killing it. He's quickly become one of my favorite writers. And he does just such an excellent job. And what's great about GI Joe is that if you're an old school fan, if you grew up with GI Joe, in the 80s, you're gonna love this series. If you grew up with this series, in the 80s, and now your kids, maybe they're 10, 11, 12, right, and you want to get them into GI Joe, this is a great thing. Now, I'll tell you, Cobra Commander and Destro, especially Cobra Commander, get a little violent. And like Cobra Commander is not what I would call a kid's book. It's not like it's like, need warning labels or anything like that, but like it gets pretty violent. I was kind of surprised by that. And they're not holding back. They're all in on this series. So I absolutely loved it. This was one of the first books I read this week. And I do think my plan is to have an Energon Universe month where I just do 4 straight main lines of GI Joe and or Transformers titles.
Yeah, as you said that, I was like, that makes perfect sense. Like, why not do it? Like, you have the only book like you said, you can't do Transformers and you can't do Duke. Those are the only 2 that you can't do.
Yeah.
Because I read Duke as well. But yeah, like Scarlet, Destro, like these are like Cobra Commander is the one where like you tried to get me to read it, and I was like, I'm okay. Like, but it's like now, like I saw a lot of buzz. Of all the titles outside of Transformers, I feel like Cobra Commander got the most buzz of them all. And obviously you've talked about it already now. So I want to hear more about it. I want to know why I was wrong to not check these out. Because that's what this show is
and
all
Destro
about.
would be the one that surprised me the most. Because I could have told you I wouldn't have given 2 poops about a Destro comic.
Sure.
But I read that. It's really effing good. And I think that was Dan Waters, right?
Yeah. You've
Pay
been
attention to that name, folks.
Yep.
Pay attention to that name. You might hear me talk more about Mr. Waters in the future.
Yep, we got a lot of reason to talk about him in the future. That is for damn sure. But moving on, why don't you take us through Boom and Dark Horse?
Okay, I actually wrote down the Dark Horse books this time, Nicholas.
Well done.
Yeah,
Proud
thank
of you.
Thank you. From Boom, we have Minor Arcana issue 3, I Heart Skull Crusher issue 7, Garfield issue 4, Power Rangers Prime issue 1. This is written by Misty Flores. Nicholas, did you read it yet?
Yeah, I did. This was
Okay.
a solid first issue. Like I will be
Awesome.
checking out. I mean, obviously, like Melissa Flores has great command of the Power Rangers for obvious reasons. So haven't checked in with her in a long time. I know you don't read Power Rangers stuff; it's not your thing.
But
so
I might read this, unless you call dibs. But
no, I'm not gonna call dibs on it. You can check it out. But there's like other like if you're gonna dig into Power Rangers, then you and I need to have like a side conversation, like where
where to begin.
Go. Yes, yeah, 100%. Because I think it's worth your time, but there's like a lot to get to. So, but that's a conversation for another day.
And then we have the Return of Wind, The Power of Blood, issue 1. This was an excellent first issue. I've talked about Wind way back when on the program. I love it. I love Wind. This was a very dark issue, and it looks like it's going to be a very dark final arc for Wind. And I really do hope it has a happy ending, because I really do love those characters very much. From a Dark Horse, we have Hell-End of Windhorn issue 6.
Oh, the final issue, dude. I'm not talking about it in detail on the show. This is I have 2 books that are like right at the top of my list to do for the next mainline, which I don't know when those are going to happen necessarily, because you and I are going through scheduling and stuff. But Helen of Windhorn is number 2 on that list, only behind Rook Exodus. Like these 2 are fucking awesome. You're gonna love these books. I'll get to that more another time, though.
Masters of the Universe TMNT issue 2. This, of course, is written by Tim Seeley. We have Black Hammer, Spiral City issue 1. Gru, I Am Gru, Minstrel Melodies issue 3. Summer Shadows issue 3. Borderlands, Moxie's Mysterious Memento, say that 10 times fast, issue 1. And then we have another issue 1 that I have dibs on. That I almost undibsed, and then said to myself, nope, I'm in, I'm back in, it's got me. And that is Arcbound issue 1. So this is written by Scott Snyder and Frank Thierry. with character concepts by Tom Hardy and art by Ryan Smallman. So when I read this, I was initially under the impression that it was like this was written by Scott Snyder and Tom Hardy. And it's not. It's this is really written by Frank Thierry with what I feel like is Scott Snyder guidance. And Tom Hardy's like, hey, I have this idea for some characters. Let's let my name on it, and hopefully you guys can sell a ton of comic books. And so initially I'm reading it, and it took a little bit for me to get into it. But then by the end, I felt this is probably the end of the issue is probably where Scott Snyder had the most influence, because it had that nice little Scott Snyder kind of twist to it and kind of touch and finesse to it. So this definitely felt more. I'm not familiar with Frank Thierry's work, but like I've read enough Scott Snyder books to know like his style, his cadence, the way he weaves things. And it wasn't until the end that I was like, okay, boom, I'm in. And that to me was the Scott Snyder touch to all this. It's a really cool sci-fi. You know, the premise of it is you have a soldier starting to question, you know, the mission, right? And of course, you know, you're not going to have a good sort of sci-fi thriller without some potential corruption. And anyone that ever starts to question the mission, you know, 2 + 2 = 5, Nicholas, right? 2 + 2 = 5.
Yeah.
If you say 4, you're gonna get got, right? And so we get this great element to it. We have this soldier, you know, really sort of starting to, you know, wrestle with his conscience and the purpose of the war in which he is a part of. And the way it ended was so good. That I'm definitely back in. I can't wait to read the second issue. So, Arcbound issue 1. If you get it, and I think some people they might be in right from the get-go, right? I think for me, it was like I was being a little snobbish, going, "Oh, Scott Snyder's co-writing it, which means he's probably just sort of like giving advice and character concepts by Tom Hardy." Because I was kind of like interested to see if Tom Hardy actually was writing it. So like I think that, just being honest, put me off a little bit, but I just kept reading and nope, it did its job. So you're either going to be all in right from the beginning, or you're going to be more like me where it's like, okay, where are we going with this? And then, oh yes, I'm in, baby.
So that's huge. That like, as much as you like, obviously, like expectations, sometimes they can be our own worst enemy. But the fact that you had that expectation, it led to a little bit of letdown, and then you still came back at the end like, no, this thing fucking slaps. Like that's huge. That's that like you can't ask for more. Or I guess like that's, as someone with like, it's just a good thing to have. I'm like having trouble with
I know
analogies
what you're
there.
trying to say, right?
Yeah.
Because you know, don't judge a book by its cover, right? Kind of thing. So in this case, I was judging it by its creative team,
Yeah, exactly.
and probably unfairly.
Well,
So I was
I'm
like, no,
familiar with Frank Thierry. Like I know that name.
I
I
mean, I
can't
know I'm familiar, but it's not like,
just
oh,
can't
like,
recall.
you know
Yeah,
what I mean?
I don't know if we've done a
Yeah.
Frank Thierry book on the show. That's yeah. So, but either way, Arcbound. So Tom Hardy, Scott Snyder, Frank Thierry, Ryan Smallman. So cool stuff. Obviously, I am gonna have to wait a while for you to talk about that one. Before we have a Mad Cave book that we want to break down, but I'm gonna take us through a couple of these here, Joe, from AWA. We're supposed to get the final issue of You and I this week, issue 6. From Vault, we got Something Crawled Out issue 2. I actually got this already. I think that was a mistake on League of Comic Geeks part, but this is a book that I have dibs on from Vault. We got Goobers issue 2. From Distillery, we got Time Waits issue 2. This is the Zdarsky book that you have dibs on, if I'm not mistaken. Life issue 3, and then The Big Burn issue 2, which is a book that I have dibs on from Distillery. From Titan, we got Minky Woodcock, The Girl Called Cthulhu. I'm never going to get it right. Issue 2. Huge Detective, issue 2. Interesting having those. I feel like that happened I feel like that happened last time we talked about these two books. And then we got Heat Seeker Combustion, issue 1. Did you get a chance to check this one out? I didn't.
I loved it. It was excellent. The story of it, like I read the last Heat Seeker, and I've read some of the other Gun Honey spinoffs. This might be my favorite one yet. This was a really solid issue.
Nice.
I
Okay.
like the premise of the story a lot.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah. So Gun Honey's definitely been one of the, if not the biggest, one of the biggest titles over at Titan. So it's good to see like their spinoffs doing well too. And then from Dynamite, we got Space Ghost issue 7, The Terminator issue 2, Johnny Quest issue 4, Barbarella issue 2. Then we go back to Mad Cave. So we got the first issue of Gotcha Man, June Apex Heart issue 1, and String issue 1. Then we got the 5th issue of The Mammoth, which Joe has dibs on. And then, Joe, we have the return. It's been a while since we got this, since we got the first issue of Dark Empty Void. The second issue is finally out this week. We got a chance to look at it. What did you think?
Man, we talked about this with the first issue, right? Claustrophobic, right, is the feeling you get, and it doesn't stop with just the first issue. We get a little less character development this issue, and a lot more. How do I want to say this? Weird action.
Yeah.
There's some stuff that happens, man, in this issue. Like this is like I don't know about you. I got some alien vibes.
Yes.
And that's just because the suspense that Zach Kaplan is able to create. And who's the artist
Christian.
on this book? Oh, thank you. Yes, Christian. Oh, Jesus. Right. They just create this like vacuum, right? And everything just makes so much like because you're talking about black holes, dark empty void, right? And that title works on so many levels,
Yeah.
not just like from a scientific, but also from an emotional perspective. But Zach and Christian do such a great job at creating this like suspenseful vacuum
Mm-hmm.
that you feel it when you're reading it. The suspense is palpable, and this is just an absolutely tremendous series. And like I said, I got vibes of Alien in this, and not so much like because you got the big xenomorphs or anything like that, but just
No.
that palpable suspense that's being created.
Yeah, I mean, each panel is anxiety-inducing. That's like
Mhm.
the easiest way to like, other than like labeling it as claustrophobic, which of course was said by Zach Kaplan himself when we had him on to talk about that title, this title rather. But yeah, like on top of the black hole, there, like you also like when you talk about like this claustrophobic and anxiety-inducing like feeling that we get here, we now also have like a military versus scientist aspect that's starting to develop. There are other developments, like just scientific developments that we're seeing thrown into the mix now too, that are just like, what the fuck is going on? And they're like, just like, there's a couple of images, like, some of it's images, some of it's like developments and things that we learn about what's going on that are just like really unsettling. And it's just like the whole thing is creepy. It's
Yeah.
just like everything about it is this is Dark Empty Void. There's not another title right now that's going to give you what Dark Empty Void
Mm-mm.
is providing right now. There's a lot.
Nope.
It's like a horror-ish book, but there's no other horror-ish like thing like this. It's
Yeah.
definitely something that you got to be checking out. Very glad to see this back out this week, and hopefully we're going to be getting this back to monthly, but we won't know until we get to issue 3. All right, that brings us to Joe IDW, which is the last one we're breaking down, which means Joe's talking about an IDW book this week, everybody. Before he does that, we got TMNT Mutant Nation issue 2, Godzilla Here There Be Dragons, Sons of Giants issue 5, Star Trek Lower Decks issue 1, and Yars Rising issue 1. And Joe, that concludes what's new for this week. So what do you got for me for your 106th book? That actually it's technically 107 for you because you've the one hand and the two fingers, but we're not going to get into semantics here.
Yeah, we won't get into semantics. Yeah, can you believe that, Nicholas? We've discussed 212 different books on here,
Yeah, it's
right?
yeah, that's right. I didn't even think about it from the math like that. Yeah, wow.
Yeah. I'm stunned. I did that in my head on the fly like that. Jesus.
Bravo, sir.
I will start by issuing an apology. I reread the first volume and realized I took way too effing long to discuss this book, and it made you wait way too long, Nicholas. So for that, I am sorry. I
How
truly
dare
do,
you? I've been
from the
dying.
bottom of my cold, dead heart. Apologize.
Okay,
That
fine.
book, of course,
It's about
is.
damn time.
You can clip that one, right? We can have dueling memes or gifs We're gifts. Christ. I am discussing The Hunger in the Dusk from IDW. This, of course, is written by G. Willow Wilson with art by Christian Wildgoose, colors by Diana Souza and Michelle Sessick or Sessie K. I've heard it both ways. And letters by Simon Boland. Synopsis. In a dying world, only humans and orcs remain, mortal enemies battling for territory and political advantage. But when a group of fearsome ancient humanoids known as Vangol arrive from across the sea, the two struggling civilizations are forced into a fragile alliance to protect what they have built. So the first book, right, they don't do volumes, they do books. So book 1 is 6 issues. And it looks like book 2 is going to be 5 issues. And currently the 3 issues of book 2 are out now. So the way this story begins, and like I said, like I said before, especially when I was reading When the Blood Is Dried by Gary Maloney, I've just been on a serious fantasy kick. And that book really kicked it up a notch for me. And it had been some time since I had read The Hunger in the Dusk. And I think part of the reason why it took so long to do it on the show is that I just forgot how effing good it was. And what a great fantasy story it really is. Like, I remember reading it. I mean, I first read it. It was your bachelor party weekend. I read the first issue.
Really?
Yeah,
I
right.
didn't realize that. Wow.
And so
I'm glad I'm not the only one who was reading comics at bachelor party. It was definitely just me and you, but I'm glad I wasn't alone.
Yeah. Well, your other friends were off busy swinging things.
Yeah. Goodness gracious.
But like, I just forgot how damn good of a fantasy story this is. And so when I was like, because I was thinking about doing an Enter John book this week, but I was like, no, I'm going to do The Hunger in the Dusk. And I reread it and I go, oh man, because like there was some time between when book 1 ended and when book 2 started, and then there's been time between issues, right? So like some time had passed. Anyways, the way this story begins is great. Is you've got like it's just got that great fantasy setting, like kind of poorish farm village, right? You've got 2 villagers, you've got 2 kids out there just kind of futzing around, and they see in the distance orcs. So they run back, they try and warn everyone, orcs are coming. What are the farmers of this small poor town going to do? Well, they're farmers, they're going to stand up and fight. And just as the orcs are about to invade, something else comes in and takes out the orcs, and you literally see heads roll, and you don't see what this mysterious, vicious, violent creatures are. And then the next set of panels is that this town is absolutely razed. It is scorched, and there's just one lone survivor. It's one of the kids, that you see, in the beginning, and then it sort of jumps forward. And this is where we sort of get introduced to some of the main players, and we start to learn that, there's this upcoming alliance between orcs and humans, because whatever it was, which you learn is an ancient creature known as the Vangol, is that the orcs alone can't defeat them, nor can the humans alone defeat them, and they have to align in order to stop them. It's the only way to save their lands, because as it is now, the orcs and humans are already fighting for land and resources, right? They're both competing for the same thing, and they're both struggling in their own ways. And if these Vangol come in, and they have the ability to wipe them all out. So it's like, the devil is better than the devil you don't, right? And so it revolves around this alliance between the orcs and the humans. And so, the orcs, one clan of orcs is marching to one part of the land to try and secure things, and then the humans are marching towards another, but they take an orc with them, an orc healer with them. And this is to try and really, as a sign of peace, right? Working together right? And it's really important that the orcs and the humans in this particular group really form a bond, because that could really make or break the alliance, and that alliance um, is needed. And so, it really sort of starts to then revolve around two of your main characters, which is Cal and Tara, which I'll talk about more in just a few moments. But Cal is sort of an orphaned male soldier. He's the head of his company known as the Last Men Standing. And Tara, who is an orc, she's a healer. She has magical powers. She's joining them, and they're gonna, they're off riding to sort of explore and see, and try and make sure that the Vangol aren't taking hold, anywhere. And all the while, you get their relationship developing. You've got another main character, Toth, who is a orc, who is who he was leading his own group, of warriors, and he's been betrothed to a woman who he's not. They don't really, how these arranged marriages work, Nicholas, right? They don't really know each other, so you got a lot of great character development that's happening between Cal and Tara, and then Torth, and his new wife. And all the while, you've got relationships forming, you've got wars breaking out, and then you also have this political aspect where you have races within the orcs that don't all agree that they should be forming an alliance with humans. So you've got a potential, again, war on three fronts here, but that 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 political chess playing that's going on within the orcs really doesn't start to come in until the end of the first arc, and starts to then play a role in book two. So there's a lot of different moving pieces, but what's great about it is it's an awesome fantasy story with really great characters, with beautiful violent art at times, and characters that you're invested in. The Vangol, become really, become characters you really hate and loathe. But I'm sure there's going to be more to them than meets the eye, and so you just got a lot of moving parts, which I love, right? Which always makes for a great, fantasy story. So some of the characters, you've got the humans, you've got the orcs, and then within the humans, you've got the clerics as well. And they're all trying to pretty much, it's the it's the gathering of, at Elrond's, right? Trying to, stop the world from falling into despair. And they're trying to come up, with a plan to stop this oncoming war with the Vangol. The Vangol are a new but ancient creature that threatens the land, and they only attack at dusk, right? Hence, the title of the book. And what's a big mystery in this first volume, this first book, if you will, is just how the hell are the Vangol getting around, especially if they only come out at night? How are they moving about the land? So there's something more mysterious also at play going on here, which is fantastic. And then you have Cal, that I mentioned earlier, Callum, Battle Child. He's sort of your main human. He's the leader of the Last Man Company, which in and of itself has a great cast of characters, different role players within the group that you all, you all come to love. And then you have Lady Grugtather Icemane, also known as Tara, right? And she's an orc. She's traveling with Cal. She is a symbol of peace. She's a healer, and a damn fine good one at that. And then there's Toth, who's one of the orc main characters, and for all intents and purposes, seems like a real stand-up guy. And so, like, these are all characters that have been fleshed out really well, and you really do root for. What I'll say is that G. Willow Wilson does a tremendous job at world building, without giving you lots of exposition. She just kind of throws you in. Like I said, right from the jump, it's like, boom, you're in this world. Orcs aren't good. They're attacking humans. But there's also something that is even scary to the orcs. So, like, you get it all within the first page or two, and you're like, boom, it's all I need.
Wow.
right?
First page or
And
two. Damn.
right, because you get it. It's all set up. All that happens within the first few pages. And then it starts to, okay, we're forming this line, and then it starts to like go down that path. As I said, she does great character development. Like, you really root for the good guys, you really hate the bad guys. They all have their layers to them. The relationships, and the ups and the downs that these characters have with each other, the understanding that these characters try to have with each other, because you've got different races trying to coexist, and that, as we know, doesn't always go well. And so navigating that, right, there's that political intrigue that starts to play into it, where you've got certain races within the orcs that don't agree with each other, and so what is that going to lead to? So I love the dynamic between Cal and Tara, and it really comes to a head in the fourth and fifth issues, and then where it goes into book two. And this is just a great high fantasy story with subtle political intrigue, and again, a little bit of social commentary, but like not the kind that beats you over the head. You know what I mean? Like, this is, you got two different races of beings trying to coexist with each other, and how they do that, right? I just think is excellent, and the art, it's just a perfect style. Like, when you think of high fantasy comic book art, this is what I picture, right? And this is what pops into my head. The characters look great. The action scenes are absolutely fantastic, and it's the violence is not like overkill. It's not like, it's vicious when it has to be, but it's not like overly done, like
Nice.
it's used appropriately, and I think that's important, because sometimes, like, some of these books, they go overkill and you love it. It's high octane and it fits the story perfectly. I think here, when it's used correctly, it accentuates, the moment. And this was just an absolutely excellent, excellent book. um First volume, tremendous. We're just halfway through the second volume. And so far, again, tremendous. So I can't wait to see how it wraps up. And Nicholas, read it. You're gonna absolutely love it.
Well, this is the second IDW title I think that you've talked about on the show, and obviously we're talking about what's going on with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and we didn't do an episode on the last Ronin, but obviously that would be TLDR worthy if one of us had dibs on that. But we're not, cruel individuals on this show most of the time. But like, this is two books where it's like, these sound like absolute bangers, and I know people love The Hunger in the Dusk, so I've been kind of twiddling my thumbs here, knowing this is going to be a good book. But hearing the full breakdown of it, I am more impressed than I expected to be. So I'm very excited going into this. And again, another high fantasy book for you, like you said, where we didn't do an episode, I don't think, on When the Blood Has Dried, because we ended up having Gary on the show. But you were on that book before I was, and you would have done an episode on that if we didn't have Gary on right when the series wrapped up. So just you've been on it. Like, I love high fantasy too, but in comics, I feel like it's not always been as big of a thing. But this is two titles right now that have been very impressive.
Yeah, for sure, Nicholas, for sure.
Now I'm going to switch things up and go in a very different direction with the Mad Cave title that I'm talking about this week, and this one probably snuck up on some people. I know it snuck up on me, and that's A Phone Call Away. And the reason that this book snuck up is because this is actually an OGN, and I don't know how many OGNs Mad Cave necessarily does. I feel like they may have some here and there, but I feel like they have like 3 titles dropping, on a given week, and then they have, they do collected editions by and large, not as many OGNs. There's only so many places that I feel like really consistently do OGNs. But this is also a Rich Douek book, who we've talked about on the show quite a bit. I believe you have more so than I have, but he does some great stuff. Obviously, he's done quite a bit with with Alex Cormack, who was our 2024 Floppies winner for Artist of the Year, unanimous. But with this title, we have Russell Mark Olson as the artist who's doing both the lines and the colors. And then the letterer on this is Lucas Gattoni. And this is available now, as I mentioned before. This like kind of came out of nowhere on us, and then I was like, I gave it a look, and I was like, I'm going to do this one on the show. I'll sneak this one in for Joe. Get it. Obviously, snuck past us, but snuck past you, I guess. But either way, you will read this thing in one sitting. That's why I was so like, I'm going to call dibs on this, just because like when Joe reads it later, he'll be fine. Like right now, he doesn't know he's missing out, but he'll know later on that he was missing out. And then when he wants to read it, he'll read it real fast. The genre on this is described as modern neo-noir. The synopsis: a family's tragic loss leads to financial gain through a reality show and worldwide recognition. However, the reality of life sets in as their second child goes missing. Can they find her in time? So yeah,
I don't like missing children, Nicholas.
Well, there you go. It's good that I'm doing this on the show. You don't like missing children or children who like their houses on fire. Just for those keeping score at home. For the characters, so we have Emma and Andrew Walker. These are the parents of Mandy and Megan Walker. Mandy is the child that went missing 14 years ago, and Megan is the child who we see at the beginning of the story and ends up going missing fairly quickly. Of course, the sister of Mandy as well. Then there are quite a few other people that are in the mix, but I would say outside of the Walkers, the other big players are Nina Hendrick and Detective Raul Martinez. So Raul Martinez was the detective on the case for Mandy Walker years ago when she went missing. And he didn't move up the ranks because he didn't solve the case. Nina Hendrick was an ex-media member who was consumed by the Mandy Walker case. And like I think the Walker family filed a restraining order against her because she would not let up on looking into the case, and it ended up costing her career because she got so stuck in it. And I'll get to those two a little bit more in a bit, Nina and Raul. But on a plot note, like the first few pages, where you hear in the synopsis that the second daughter, Megan, goes missing. Like this all happens in the first couple pages. So again, where you're talking about the hunger and the dusk, where like you were in after page 2, I was in, I think it was maybe it was page 6 that it happened, maybe somewhere between because you're getting a background of her sister. Like this is how we got where we are, and it fits within the flow of the story. And there's a lot of that. Like this is what happened previously, and it fits now because it's applicable to what's going on in this story. But first couple pages, you learn about Mandy, who was abducted years ago, how their parents kind of capitalized on the situation, I guess, for lack of a better term. And then now you get Megan, who disappears, and then boom, we're into it. And it's a great way for us to learn about the past, see the similarities, and go from there. But with the Walkers, so again, this is Emma and Andrew, the parents. I love this concept of from a story standpoint of our child went missing. This is a terrible thing that happened to us. So many people get invested in this family, in the girl's disappearance. So many people provide this family support, both from paying attention to every interview they do, reaching out to them, and various other things. And I'm not talking about the media, because they didn't care about the media. They cared about the average person who was invested in their story, invested in their daughter disappearing. They turn it into a fucking reality show when they have another kid, and it's just this is a commentary on reality TV that I never would have expected, and so fucking well done. It's look, reality TV has its place. I don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's definitely too much of a thing in some ways, in my opinion, but at the same time, some people could argue sports is too much of a thing in some ways too. So everything has its place, but some of the ridiculousness that we see, they're poking at it here, and it's just so smart because some scumbag parents probably would do something like this, where it's oh yeah, my kid went missing, everybody loves this. Well, we miss our daughter. Maybe we should just keep making money off of that, and then we'll have another kid, and then we'll turn that into a show. And it's just what the fuck? It's just, and it's a commentary on the viewers too. It's like everybody involved. It's so well
Nick,
done.
people watch The Tiger King for fuck's sake.
I
Right?
mean,
Like,
you watched it, right?
uh, unfortunately,
It was,
but you know what I mean?
I was, look, yeah, I'm with you. I watched it. It was fucking ridiculous, but I will watch that. I've watched it twice, I think. I
Oh,
will watch it
Jesus.
again because it was also, that was also like a moment in 2022. Like it was a big deal. Like when we were all stuck at home. Like,
Yeah, which should say something about us
yeah,
as people.
that is a very fair statement. But this has a like I this has a ton of like layers to it, as you would expect with any good story. It's just you
Like
have
an
one
onion.
thing and then it leads to another development, to another development. Yeah, tiny onion. There you go. But there's for me, it felt like every few pages we get a layer pulled back. And I don't think we get that necessarily with every story. Maybe because this is written originally as like an OGN. And also it's an OGN where we don't have chapter breaks. This is also why it's going to be such a quick and easy thing to binge for you and for our listeners. But I think that like plays into it where like Rich, his approach is just like a couple pages go by, new development. A couple pages go by, another twist. Not every twist is like, there's lies that are mixed into the story as one might imagine. But for me, getting all these different twists and some of them being misdirection, some leading like revealing a misdirection from earlier, I found that very satisfying on my part. And then I mentioned before Nina Hendrick, who is the ex like journalist, and then Detective Raul Martinez, who like worked uh, alongside each other previously wouldn't be the right way to put it because they were both kind of doing their own thing, but they like had interactions throughout the original Walker missing child case. Like Nina Hendrick, by all accounts, like she was like just from like the experience that we get, the information we get from her, like she may have gotten too invested in it in some capacity, but she did a hell of a lot better digging than Raul did as the detective. And I really enjoy having those like this pairing of journalist and detective side by side because journalists have like their own like set of like rules that they go by, but like be it as a reporter, be it as from a writing standpoint, like there's different things there. And then the law, you also have certain rules that you're supposed to abide by. And I find it interesting because those don't always line up with one another, so they can go in different places. They think differently, and that's just I feel like we've seen that pairing before in some capacity. That's not to say that this is like derivative. That's a thing that I like, and when done well, it's very satisfying for me. And this is an example of it being done very well and in a way that I have not necessarily seen before. And then from an art standpoint, the biggest thing for me is the colors that Russell Mark Olson uses throughout this series. It feels very akin to Morningstar, also from
Oh,
Cave Studios, where it has this classic vintage vibe to it. Not quite as throwback as Morningstar does, but very similar in that regard. And I think that's like it's perfect because it's like emoting the feelings that the walkers want you to have when you think about their family. They want their viewers to be like, oh yeah, they're like the all-American family. Like I want to be them, or I love them and I want to be friends with them. That kind of shit. That's what the colors give to me in this series. And like that hit me subconsciously as I was reading 100% because I know like I was like I remember thinking like the colors fit well, but I don't know why. But then as like we were getting ready to break things down, I was like, that's what it is. Like this is supposed to be like how they want everything to be fucking rosy and perfect and whatnot in their life, and that's being done through Olson's colors here. So a lot to like about this series. When you pick this up, if you're looking for something to read and you're gonna pick this up and read it in one sitting, and you are gonna be like, what the fuck just happened? There's so much I can't talk about when it comes to this story. I mentioned there's a million layers, but it's like I can't like I don't know I don't think I've mentioned too many. I don't even know if I've mentioned any, but there's so much, and if you just peel back one, there's going to be another one every couple pages. So there's a lot to like about this story. So OGN from Mad Cave Studios, a phone call away. Check that one out.
love it, love it, love it. That sounds right up my alley.
Oh
I
yeah, you
love
are gonna
I
like.
love Rich Duick. He's he's written some tremendous books, as you said. Sea of Sorrows, Road of Bones, Drive Like Hell. Him and Cormac are a great team, and I think I saw on Twitter today that he got a new project greenlit. So I'm excited to
Ooh.
hear about that and see what that'll be. And yeah, anybody listening to this, watching this, you should go check out all of Rich's work, and I can't wait to check this one out.
Yeah, you're gonna enjoy it, and good to know on the new project for Rich Duick, because we got to. We were supposed to have him on at one point, and then some things happened, and we weren't able to make our schedules line up. But maybe we'll have to circle back with him and see if we can get him on for that. And then obviously we have a ton of shit to talk to him about, not just that title. So it's gonna be
Yep.
that'll be a tough one with prioritizing the questions, but that's a good thing, a good problem to have. But that is gonna do it for us for the 106th mainline episode of TLDR. We will be having, we're going to be having our holiday gift guide coming out next. We have bumping that up because obviously we want to help make sure you guys can put in orders that you need to for the holiday season. Bounce around to a few different comic shops if you need to. We're going to be doing comic book recommendations. This is going to be obviously for people who listen to the show, who buy comics, week to week. You don't necessarily need help for yourself. Maybe you're telling people what to get for you. Okay. But maybe if you're like, oh, I want to help get someone else introduced to comics, that kind of stuff. Or if you know somebody who's like, oh, I have a kid and they get, or teenager or whatever, and I want to buy them some comics because they really like it, but I don't know what to do. This is the episode for them to listen to as well. And then they can tell that person that they gift the book to listen to us. But we're trying to help everybody out as best as we can with this holiday gift guide. We've had a lot of fun doing it over the years. Very excited to dig into some titles now. So it's kind of like a look back on some stuff from previous years, but from this past year, but also digging back even further. And we got a lot more coming this holiday season. Do you got anything else, Joe, before we get rolling?
Maybe we'll incorporate some toys in there. I don't know, right? Some cool collectibles, perhaps. I don't know. Because there are these cool new Transformers things that are out there, like blind boxes, and they're like almost kind of like Legos, where you get to put the action figure together. And they've got commons, rares. So I'm gonna actually buy one for Violet tomorrow, and one of the kids in her class, I talked to his dad, and him and his son love Transformers, so I might get him one as well. So nice. I'll have the name of that product out, but we might throw some stuff in there because you never know what might make a great stocking stuffer, what you might be able to take advantage of on Black Friday, and all that stuff. We just want to give the good people a heads up because more comics need to be given as gifts this holiday season.
This is very true. I've been giving my nephew comics, I think, for the last couple years now, and I'm gonna keep doing that because he loves Sonic, and I'm gonna keep giving him more Sonic.
I'm at the point now. I need my nephew to send me a picture of what he's got because I've forgotten. I know I've gave him like Invincible, the first volume of Invincible, Daredevil. I forget which classic Batman books I've given him. I think I gave him the Court of Owls. Nice. But I'm not sure. So I'm like, Patrick, I need you to send me a picture of your book. So nice. I don't double dip, or I give you the second volume,
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to double dip. I'm gonna have to text my sister-in-law to get an update on where I left off with Sonic. I should make a note of that. But but you're right. We could talk about toys. Maybe there's other things too. Like we're a comics first show, and we want to talk about comics, but like we also want to make sure we're getting the whole thing, because maybe the toy is what gets your kid into comics or whatever. Like we both backed in to comics. Like I was originally like X-Men the animated series. That was the thing I was a little kid when that came out. Yours was TMNT that came out when you were younger in whatnot. So who knows? But anyways, we will be convening on that point in that front next week. Until then, Joe, stay sexy.
You know it, baby. Oh, and keep reading.